and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, it's the original bad ape himself, Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
It's a mad monkey planet.
We are back after an unexpected week off, and man, I'm so glad we're back, Matt, because I've been wanting to talk to you about this movie for so long. This week on the show, our Deconstructing Apes series will continue with the penultimate and ninth film in our series. We're talking about the 2017 conclusion to the reboot Ape trilogy series, War for the Planet of the Apes. And this is all we're talking about today, Matt. This is it. We wanted to spend some time on this movie. We're going to spend some time on this movie, and then we're going to call it a week.
That's right. I'm looking forward to talking about this one. This is sort of, I was very satisfied with how this rounded out. Just remind everyone I hadn't seen this movie. Funnily enough, also hadn't seen the previous movie, even though I erroneously thought that I had. But very satisfied with how they rounded out this story that began way back with the Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh my God, you remembered the correct order. I'm so proud of you.
I did.
All right, Matt, let's get into this movie. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about War for the Planet of the Apes. What is this movie all about?
After the apes suffer unimaginable losses, Caesar wrestles with his darker instincts and begins his own mythic quest to avenge his kind.
This movie was written once again by Mark Baumbach, Rick Jaffa, and Matt Reeves. It was directed by Matt Reeves. It stars Andy Serkis, Woody Harrelson, and Steve Zahn as Bad Ape.
It's great.
Or should I say Steve Zahn as that monkey that looks exactly like Steve Zahn.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right, Matt. So yeah, you said you hadn't seen this movie. You were pretty satisfied with it. Tell me about it. What was your experience with War for the Planet of the Apes?
It's a sad movie.
It is.
It's a great movie. It's like, the thing is, it's hard to talk about this movie in isolation because I keep wanting to talk about the story of Caesar, which extends beyond this movie. But I don't think I think it's valid to want to talk about the story of Caesar because this is the ending of the story of Caesar. And this is a really solid, satisfying ending. We don't get many stories that are just an unironic and straight down the middle tale of somebody who starts out hard luck and then becomes like a truly noble king.
Yeah,
we're in our postmodern age of irony, and we just don't do that very often. But if you make him a monkey, then you can get away with it. So Caesar, that's why Caesar's just such a good character because he's when you meet him as literally a baby, and you follow him through hardship, and you empathize with his plight at every turn, and he becomes this like Arthurian hero king, who suffers for his people, sort of a Christ figure in some ways, sort of an Arthurian figure, basically a legendary mythic figure, kind of like that. It's kind of like that plot summary said, but also at the same time, you're with him. He never kind of ceases to become relatable to you as the character. He never stops being a character. And that's, I think, my favorite thing about this whole franchise is it knows to keep that through line. That the center of the story is Caesar, and it keeps him, human, keeps him relatable in your mind, even while all these things are happening to him.
That's so incredibly well said. I completely agree with you there. I think this is a perfect conclusion to this story of this character who has been through hell. I think when I think about this trilogy and my experience rewatching it now here for this podcast, I still think I like the second movie the best. I think just like from end to end, everything that the second movie is doing is like exactly my shit in this beautiful way that I was just kind of bowled over by it the first time I saw it and every subsequent time. But I think this is like it I guess the comparison is like Star Wars, where like perhaps the second film in the original trilogy is the best film, but like the third is just the perfect conclusion to everything the story was doing. and and that's really how I feel about this series as well, is that like we have this character that we've taken through everything. And I love what you said about how he's both the myth and the character, because you can see him being both of those things, and you can also see him kind of wrestling with the fact that he is both of these things. He's wrestling with his own personal desire as, I almost said as a human being, as a person, with wants and needs and heartbreak and all the things that drive all of us, and also his great noble responsibility to his people as this king that is trying to lead them to their salvation.
Yeah.
And those come in direct conflict inside him in a way that I don't think they had in either of the previous two movies, and it really does make for this engaging character, this character that is beat up. Like this movie I think takes place 2 years after the end of the second film, and Caesar looks so much older. It is not just that they've put a little tinge of gray in his hair, but they have done that. But the way he holds himself, the way he looks at people, the way he, like his eyes and his face, he just is angry and tired. And that's kind of where we meet him at the beginning of this movie. And that makes it such a wonderful arc where we see it by the end of the movie where he dies, like he dies content and peaceful and happy. And it's just this beautiful, sad, but ultimately uplifting journey, I think, for this guy who, yeah, we've fallen in love with from when he was a little baby monkey, through everything, through his desperate desire to find a way to coexist and to keep his people safe through the worst possible tragedy that a father could go through, to a place where he finds himself peaceful and content, knowing his people are going to be okay. It's beautiful, and I love it so much.
It probably should have been obvious to me. Maybe this is obvious to you. But I guess maybe I'm just turning on the analysis part of my brain, that this is kind of a Moses story. There's probably all kinds of Moses parallels that I'll think of as soon as I start looking for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, like just overall at a high level, the most obvious being that he is a reluctant leader who who is actually raised by the oppressor. And then he realizes who his true people are, and then he has to suffer tremendously with his people and lead them out of their bondage, where they're literally building things for the soldiers, like and being kept as actual slaves, and then the movie basically ends with a supernatural sort of inrushing of the Red Sea type moment, which
Sure,
which I thought was great. Like there's something sort of delightfully cheesily throwback about the final battle between the two human armies, where it's not that it was bad, and it's not that the special effects were bad, but I was just like, no one would have a battle this way. but I love this because it's like, on the level of metaphor, it's like, this is what the humans are. This is how consistently we were portrayed in these movies, is we're these dumb, violent, self-destructive creatures who, again, on the level of like what we are as beings, we totally would just like rush into the teeth of rockets shooting at us, and then be covered by an avalanche that we can't get away from because we're too dumb and also physically weak. It was great, and it felt perfectly like just the right touch of hokey and a little bit supernatural, that this avalanche just perfectly wipes out all the humans and leaves the apes just totally fine.
Yeah.
I was like, I totally accept this as canon. I have no problem with this. It's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Moses story is obviously there. I think it's funny that the character's name is Caesar almost entirely because of the connections back to the earlier series, right? But yeah, like I wonder if they were starting from fresh, they would have just named him Moses to make this metaphor even more clear. But you're absolutely right; it's there. And yeah, I mean, I think the second movie worked very, very hard to develop this situation where you didn't necessarily blame one side over the other, right? You had this scared group of humans that we got to see, these people that managed to survive the apocalypse and are desperately searching to reestablish civilization. And then you have these apes who are just starting out and desperately hoping to build their own existence that up until now hasn't been a thing, and they're coming into conflict with each other, and nobody's necessarily right. There's bad actors on both sides that inevitably turn this into war. This movie is not playing with that kind of thing. I mean, like, yes, there are, like, I think the movie does a really good job of like showing the apes that have gone bad, and perhaps showing some humans that are not quite as bad, but like the humans are the bad guys here, right? It's just like we're full into the humans are the bad guys now, and that doesn't lessen the movie for me, because I think that's just what we've transitioned to, a later phase in this war, where we are kind of setting up the pieces for what the first Planet of the Apes movie will be, and we have to do that by creating this war conflict where, you know, we're just on the side of Caesar for the most of it, and that's
Yeah.
just kind of what we're doing. And in that role, I think Woody Harrelson as, I mean, Captain Kurtz, right? Like,
Right.
or General Kurtz, is it right?
Yeah.
Or is it Colonel? Is it Colonel?
Colonel
Is it
Kurtz,
Colonel?
yeah.
I have. It's been a long time
It
since I've
is
seen
Colonel.
Apocalypse Now. I mean, it's just like so on the nose, like that. That's like, this is a very dour and depressing movie, but like it's also has its fun in that way, that like he's so clearly meant to be a Kurtz character. Like, I mean, there's a scene where he's shaving his head, right? And we're
Right.
just like this is like so channeling Apocalypse Now, very, very clearly, very intentionally. And he, like, I guess one thing I remembered when I heard that Woody Harrelson was cast in this movie, I was like, oh, like Woody Harrelson's such a fantastic actor, but I wouldn't have pegged him for that type of role. But he does such a fantastic job with it. He's a great antagonist in this film, and it's not like, the thing I love about him is it's not like the last movie where, you know, like we said, there's a clear bad guy and a clear good guy. There's a clear antagonist, clear protagonist, but the movie still takes the time to allow us to understand what motivates this guy, right? Like why he behaves this way, why he is utterly convinced that his way is the right way, why he would sneak into a waterfalled ape community to try to assassinate the leader of his enemy, and inadvertently, I guess advertently, kill his wife and son. Like, it didn't have to do that. Like, he's the bad guy, but the movie takes the time to do this, and then gives us this poetic, wonderful ending for him. I think it's just really fantastic.
Yeah. You know, I think you're right. It doesn't romanticize his position at all, but there is an exchange that they have, which I thought was pretty important to the movie working, especially within the mythology, where, you know, Caesar's sort of debating with him, and basically he replies by just correctly saying what's going to happen if they don't kill the apes. He's like,
Right.
yeah, well, the virus is going to turn us all into, mute, unintelligent creatures, and your people will will take over the earth. The only solution is we have to wipe out the disease reservoir, which is the apes, and we have to ruthlessly exterminate any humans who get the mutation. And then you're like, and it's a great scene, because even like Caesar in the moment, you know, Andy Serkis, you see his like body language just deflates, because hearing that, he realizes, like, well, from this guy's point of view, that's totally correct. Like, I don't have a rebuttal to that. Like, this is just one side has to kill the other, and it's not going to be us, right? So that's like that was my understanding of that scene anyway. I thought that was a great choice, to have him just basically be right, like not morally right, but he's just correct that's the natural course of events, and that is indeed what happens in the future of this world. We already know that.
It's this really fun thing where, like, this movie uses the fact that these are all technically prequels to its advantage in that regard, because like he gets to make this prediction, and we, the audience, for the most part, like, even if we haven't seen the Planet of the Apes films, we know how they work, and we understand exactly that what he says here is exactly what happens. And so, yeah, you are equipped with that knowledge of like, oh, he's just right. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, we meet Caesar in this movie as a guy who, you know, is in this war. He's kind of committed to this war, but also he his first act in the movie is trying to sue for peace. Like he pulls an Upham from Saving Private Ryan and spares the man that ends up killing him, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And he's in this desperate attempt to think like, look, if I show these people I'm reasonable, if I show these people that I don't want this war, that I don't want to fight, that I want to be able to coexist, then perhaps we could find a way forward. And yeah, that scene is him coming to the full realization that like, oh no, that's like, you can't reason with a group that whose entire desire is your destruction. Like, that's just not how this works. There's no suing for peace when the goal of your enemy is to make you extinct. And that's kind of that's where we lead. And that's like the moment where he at the end basically decides, I am going to blow up this whole place and kill them all. Like this is what I have to do now. And it is this kind of perfect tragic, like, you know, the first movie was a tragedy in like how close these two sides got to coexisting. This is a tragedy in the fact that, oh, it's doomed. Like one of my favorite moments in the movie is, you know, he's killed all of the Alpha and Omega people, and the other army comes in and they're cheering and hooting and hollering, and there's this brief moment where they see Caesar stand there, and you're kind of like holding your breath. Like, even despite everything, you know, you're like, oh, well, these are the good humans. Like those were the bad humans, and these are the good humans. So maybe this is it. And then one of them raises his gun. The rest of them start to raise their gun. And then that's when the avalanche happens, right? It's this real wonderful moment of like, oh no, they're just like the others. Like there is no coexistence between these two groups. It's just never going to happen. And it's tough watching a good leader, like go through that realization. And then the beautiful poetry, like I talked about, that the guy he spared at the beginning of the film is the one that lands the killing blow on him at the end of the movie. It pisses you off. It's just like it pissed me off in Saving Private Ryan. It's like, I don't want the lesson of these movies to be like, actually kindness and consideration and following the quote unquote rules of war is the wrong thing to do. Like, I don't want that to be true, but these movies force us to reckon with these ideas.
Yeah, it's not super optimistic about the idea of forgiveness, because if you think about it, like, try to talk me out of this if you think I'm wrong, but like,
okay,
like Caesar, Caesar's family is murdered. Mm-hmm. He's incredibly angry and wants revenge. He's gonna just go get revenge by himself, but then his quartet goes with him, which is, I want to talk about at some point, the orangutan character and how important that character is to this movie working as well as it does. Mm-hmm. You keep hoping, and the orangutan keeps talking to him about this, that he'll find some way to not, become Koba, is the way it's kind of framed. Koba was overtaken by his anger. He was conquered by his anger. That's all he was, and he died for it. And Koba, is haunting Caesar. He has visions of Koba when he's being tortured. And I'm forced to read the ending as, despite the fact that Caesar has the opportunity to just leave, he still goes back into Colonel Kurtz's room to murder him. And then, out of vengeance, right? And then sees that the guy is already mentally gone. And then it's not even clear to me that his choice not to shoot the guy is any kind of mercy. It's just like, well, it doesn't matter. So here's the gun, whatever.
Yeah.
And then when he leaves on his way out, that is when he is shot with the crossbow bolt.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to escape the idea that if he hadn't gone back to get his vengeance, he wouldn't have been shot. So ultimately, it's like, yeah, he sort of failed. He sort of, like, he succeeded in saving his people. It was a great victory in many ways. He was a great hero in the story in many ways. But the one important way in which he failed is he was not able to escape the need for vengeance.
Yeah, I think that's the correct read. I really do. Like, that admission, like the movie is very clear with this, that he's continually making the wrong choice, right? Mm-hmm. Like he elects to go off on his own. And then so his people are captured and he's not there, right? They need their king, they need their defender, they need some of their strongest warriors, and they are not there for when the humans fall upon them and they're captured. Um, and then he recognizes the mistake of that. There's that wonderful moment that I loved so well where he's first thrown into the prison cell, and everyone, like, instead of like worship and treat him as their king, they kind of like turn away from him. They're just like, they're angry, they're sad, they're like, and I forget who says it. It might be Maurice, I don't know who says it, but like someone says, forgive them, they've been through a lot, right? I actually think it's his daughter's or his son's girlfriend. I'm blanking on her name, but and that's like this really powerful moment where the movie's being very clear, like, you made the wrong choice, Caesar. Like, you allowed your vengeance and your desire for that vengeance to cloud your judgment. And he does this like thing where he tries to build nobility out of it, where he's saying, I'm going to distract them. Like, I am going to search these people down and just give you guys the safety of getting out peacefully, right? That is how he bills it to himself, but it's bullshit. That's a lie. He's going because he wants to kill the colonel. That's what he wants to do. He wants to kill the colonel, and he can't stop. You're absolutely right. Yeah, even at the very end, even as everything's crumbling down around them, even if it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's over. It's all over. They're being invaded by the other army. Even if the colonel doesn't get the disease and turn primitive, like, his threat to Caesar and his people is gone, but he cannot help himself. He cannot stop himself, and he pays for it. He pays for it with his life. Yeah.
And I think that is basically in line with the original, the original films, which, as we talked about at the time, are not super optimistic about, human nature / sapient nature. It's just like, the apes are kind of better than men in some ways, canonically, but also they fall into a lot of the same exact traps that we do. They're quick to anger, they're proud, they I mean, that was more the older series, but in these it's explicitly like kind of unable to forgive. And so while I'm talking about the older movies, I did say when we were talking about the last movie, like, oh, and then they didn't kill Caesar's son, which is a departure, and should have, I don't know, maybe should have occurred to me that it's like, well, they can just do that plot beat later, because the whole thing with killing Caesar's son in the first movie, that was explicitly an ape killed Caesar's son and then blamed it on the humans, and so it was a pretext, but it was a falsehood, and so there was still this hope for peace. This movie uses it quite differently. His son, his family is just slaughtered by a human, not complicated, so it makes it a lot more directly about vengeance and being unable to forgive, and is not optimistic on that point. So
no, definitely. But I think this is something that I think is true for all the series, where there's definitely this very painfully realistic point of view on who we are as people and our shortcomings. I always think there is like this through line of hope, though, like, and that's what this movie ends with. This movie ends with Caesar dies because he could not stop himself. He could not forgive. He could not let it go until it was too late anyway. And he pays the price for that. But there is this, we are left with this hope of the ape society gets to start over fresh in this new land surrounded by desert, which, by the way, I really appreciate how this movie just completely perfectly and without any clunkiness, like, moves all of our pieces into position perfectly so that the original Planet of the Apes movie could now just happen. Like even to the point where we have to cross this great vast desert to get to the place where we live is just like perfect, like putting them where they need to be for Planet of the Apes, the 1969 movie. Like, it's totally very clever how they manipulated all this into place. Like, none of it feels clunky to me.
That's the other Moses touch, of course, is wandering the desert and then finding the promised land. Yeah, I agree. I felt like, I roll my eyes at most fan service, like any good cynical millennial. but when when they're going on their journey and you see that it's not just like a desert, it's like, oh, that's exactly the same desert. It's like
Yeah.
the same really cool rock features. I don't know where that is, by the way. I want to go there.
I don't
you,
know.
yeah.
I assumed somewhere outside of LA because it's like typically where they went in these cheap 60s movies if they needed to film some unearthly location.
It's a really cool rocky mountainy deserty area. Point is, I thought that was awesome. I was like, oh shit, yeah, we're going through the forbidden zone. It's great.
It is. It's so good. It's so satisfying, and yeah, I mean, like we have this hope for these people. I think this hope for these people is tinged by the fact that like if we're just going to fully accept that this is just the lead up to the first movie, that like we know these people are just going to be as flawed and terrible as anyone ever would be. But that's like, I mean, that's just true of anyone, right? Like, I don't know. I don't want to let that bring me down too much, because I do think this ending is very, very moving.
Yeah, I mean, there's bad as us and they're as good as us. Like I said when talking about the older movies, like I really got attached to Cornelius and Zira as just wonderful people. Doesn't matter that they're not humans; they're just exemplary people. And those are some of the people that exist in this society. It's the kind of society that can produce people like that. It also produces people like Dr. Zaius, who are, blinded by dogma, which is no worse than what we have in our society. So.
Certainly, yeah. I gotta say, I was a little disappointed to see the character from the second movie, just not the human character from the second movie, just not be in this movie at all. I honestly think that was just like a scheduling thing, that they just couldn't get the actor. But like, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen him, and he just not present in this movie at all. You just like, it's just like this kind of missing hole of what happened to this family that found their way together despite everything. Are they just gone now? Are they dead? Where do they go?
I guess I just assumed. First of all, I think I just assumed we weren't going to see them in this movie, and it's because I just assumed like, well, they just kind of fade into the woods, and they're the ancestors of the people who are the mute wild humans, which is the best one can hope for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're inevitably going to get the disease and become primitive. I know we talked about like such a clever way of getting to mute stupid humans, right? It was like, well, we've already established this disease, this virus that spreads through people and kills most of them. What if it mutates? And it was a thing that was supposed to affect the brain. So yeah, let's just have it do that. But this time it makes us primitive. I think this is actually really interesting though, because I think the character of Nova is so interesting in this movie, because like you listen to how Woody Harrelson defines what this thing is and what it's doing to people. And it's like, it turns us primitive. We can't talk anymore. We can't think. We can't reason. We're animals. We're just animals. And like he looked into his son's eyes and he saw no intelligence. And then you look at the character of Nova and you're like, well, that's not exactly true, Colonel. Like, yes, she couldn't speak. Yes, we're trying to set up as the version of humanity that is like intellectually inferior to the apes, but like, I don't know, she's like helping out and like doing all the stuff, and like I just think his understanding of what this does and what it means is wrong. And I mean, he needs it to be that because he has to justify the fact that he murdered his own child, but I just think that's why Nova is such a perfect character to include in this thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think the idea, I think that's textual. Like I think he is just wrong about. Well, okay, so what it is it's connecting to this idea that the whole series really is gesturing at of like, is there less moral value if there's less intelligence, and in his mind, it's like an ape has no moral value. He actually sort of respects Caesar because Caesar is intelligent, like, and he basically instantly dehumanizes actual humans who he sees as having lost their intelligence. And but then we, the audience, are shown Nova. It's funny, for a second I forgot that the character was named Nova, and I thought you were referring to the character who that name is a reference to from the old movies, the woman.
Yeah, no. They named her Nova.
Yeah,
that was what Maurice did,
which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's great. I think we're playing again with this idea of like how we so easily just dismiss conscious beings that are not as smart as us. We just like you're not, your life has no value.
Yeah, I like what you said about that he respects Caesar because he thinks Caesar's intelligent. Because there's one thing that I think I felt in this movie more than the I think it's true in all three films, but I think it's more true in this one than the other, is Caesar is an ape and is one of these people, but he's also like more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see it the most in this movie, where like I think in the second movie, like he could definitely talk and there were lots of scenes of dialogue, but he did like regularly sign with the rest of the apes, which is the majority of their like how they communicate is via sign language still, because
Mm-hmm.
not all of them can talk yet. In this movie, I feel like he's almost always talking.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he's just with apes, he's in a group with just apes, they're all signing to him, he's just responding via dialogue. And I really think that was an intentional choice to kind of segment and separate him. I think he acts the least ape-like in any of the movies in this movie. He is most human, like feeling and the way he holds himself, the way he walks in this movie than all of the other movies. And I wonder exactly what we're doing with that. I think it's just like he's perhaps a signal about how they're advancing and getting more intelligent, but it seems like him specifically over all the other ones. And I wonder, like, part of me wonders if Caesar's death at the end of this thing is like this idea of, I've created this new world for my people, but it's one I don't belong in, because
Mm-hmm.
I come from humanity. Like I was born in with humans. I was born in this world, so I can't live in your new world. I'm too separate and too apart from it. This is for you. It's not. It was never for me. That's not textual anywhere. I just really feel it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a sense when he's living with the apes that he's like, we can do better than this, because he's seen better than this. He's lived in a house. He had a man who took care of him and taught him and loved him, and he kind of tries to bring that to his people, like by bringing them language, bringing them art, but they're just chimpanzees. Like they're smart chimpanzees, but they don't necessarily want to live the way Caesar wants to live.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Like, and it's all vibes, it's all impressions. But I just simply think you're right. There's lots of choices like this, by the way. Like, we talked a bit about how the way they animate the apes is, it's like really good, but it's also like self-consciously not perfect. And I talked about how I watched a bunch of like YouTube videos of chimpanzees and was like, yeah, chimpanzees actually look quite a bit more like animals than what we see in these movies. Like they don't quite have the same facial muscles. They're like brows, they're like eyebrows are like really, really different from ours, and so it makes their eyes look different and more terrifying, to be blunt. And they just kind of changed all that so that their eyes could be more human and expressive, and totally see why they did that. But Caesar has by far the most human and expressive face, which makes you think of him as more of a person than the others.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you said you wanted to talk about Maurice, and I think Maurice is like the closest to Caesar in this, but also separate and distinct from that. But as you said, plays an incredibly important role in this movie, and I guess the series as a whole. At the end of the day,
I love that Maurice doesn't talk for the whole series, and you think like maybe he just anatomically can't talk.
Yeah,
and then he talks like once at the end.
The most important line at the end of everything. Yeah.
I mean, he's like, he's the heart. He's the reliable wise friend. He serves this role through all three movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love orangutans. They're great.
He is the heart of this movie. Like, I think you're absolutely right here. He is, like, if there is any like kind of hope for the coexistence of these two species, I think Maurice represents it, right? Like his bonding with Nova, like this ability to kind of like he comes from a very similar background that Caesar does, right? Like he was a circus ape, or he was a circus ape, I believe. Been around humans his entire life. He is separate and distinct from the rest of the apes as well, in that regard, and yet is incredibly wise, is incredibly understanding, is constantly like he's the Jiminy Cricket for Caesar throughout this movie,
Yeah.
pushing him and pointing out when he's not making the right choices and right decisions. And like I think it is true, Matt, that what you said is that at the end his failure to let it go is what ends in his downfall. Like Maurice is there at the very end to tell him it's okay. That it's like, yeah, you messed up, you made a mistake, but you still did this incredibly important thing for us, and I will make sure that nobody forgets it ever. And he's a wonderful character. I just forgot about Maurice. Like I didn't. If you'd asked me about these films, I would not have said, "Oh yeah," and then there's the wise orangutan. But he's really really important to these things. Like even in Dawn as well. Like Dawn, he serves as like this link to the humans as well when he has that interaction with Jason Clarke's son. It kind of is another kind of window into what coexistence could look like between these two peoples.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments, one of my favorite shots, I guess, is when they first discover Nova, and he's just like sweetly looking at her. I think he's either handing her the doll, or he's just sort of looking at her, and it's just this incredibly sweet face that he's making, and the camera just holds on it for a nice long shot, almost longer than you maybe feel like it should, and it's just emphasizing like the generousness of spirit of this guy, this person, which again, I love what these movies are able to do with characters who basically never talk, who are completely CGI, and I still love this guy. He's still a great character,
Yeah. Mocapped by a woman, by the way, a woman named Karen Konoval. Cool. I don't actually know if Maurice is supposed to be male or female orangutan. It doesn't matter, but
I thought only the males had the facial flaps, but I could be wrong.
You're right, but I'm certainly not an ape expert. But I mean, and then like again pushing him, and Caesar's in his dark arc period, right? And he kills this man, justifiably. The guy was raising his gun to shoot him. Finds out he has this daughter here, and like we tragically learn that the reason he ran away with his daughter is because they were going to kill her, and he wanted to keep her safe, and he shot the apes out of fear. Like so much of what drives people in this movie is just fear, which is so incredibly valid. But he wants to leave her. He wants to leave this poor girl to die, and she ends up being pretty important to his survival. Like she saves his life, right? Like she gets him food, gets him water in his darkest time. Which, by the way, I read that when they poured that water on Caesar when he's chained up, they in production they were supposed to heat the water up so it was warm water, and they forgot to do that. So when you see Caesar's reaction to being dumped with cold water, that's Andy Serkis being dumped with freezing cold water.
I noticed that as being a really good performance.
Well, yeah. So sometimes the best performance is done through just realism. So there you go.
He's a dedicated actor.
Mm-hmm. Can we we've talked so glowingly about Andy Serkis throughout these three movies, and let's just do it once again here.
Yeah.
Like he's so good in this movie, and it's again, this is a version of Caesar that I think lines up with the person we've seen in the other two movies, but is also distinct and different. Like, and Circus manages to just pull off this change and make us immediately see that this person has changed, but is still recognizably underneath it all like the same. And like the kind of the scowl he wears on his face throughout most of the movie, I think is just so well done. Like he's
Mhm.
just got this like pissed off look on his face, like so much of it. It's this kind of mixture between anger and sadness and disappointment and grief, just stuck on his face through most of the movie.
And even before his family dies,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not quite fully there, but it's just this exhaustion, like you said earlier. He's just, I think that's we're talking about this idea of like the heroic king, the reluctant heroic self-sacrificial king
hmm
is really who Caesar is, where he leads because he must. He has no ambition, he has no ego, he doesn't want to be the king of the apes. He just cares, and he just
yeah,
has to save these people, he has to save his family, and he's in a desperate situation, and it's like he has to do this, and that's
yeah,
why it's such a lovable, relatable character.
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, he's like, it's just like all these people are looking up to him. Anytime anything bad happens, they turn to him,
Yeah.
and yeah, he cares too much to not do anything about it ever. And um, man, it's such a tragic, wonderful character. I love him so much. Probably one of my favorite characters in film, if I'm being honest with myself.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Was Rocket in the first movie?
Yes, I think Rocket was like the first ape in the jail area that I think. So remember when Caesar first gets to the like the ape preserve area, and one of the apes is like being a piece of shit to him at
Yeah,
first,
yeah,
and that's like the first guy he wins over.
yeah.
Pretty sure that's Rocket.
Okay, I didn't know that, so that's cool to think about, because I was like, obviously I remember where Koba comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I remember where Maurice comes from, but I was like, when did we pick up Rocket? I remember he was in the last movie, obviously, but I didn't
Yeah,
remember him being in the first one. So
I'm not
cool.
100% sure on that, but I'm sure enough that I'm going to state it like I am 100%
Yeah.
sure. So there you go.
So I had a nitpick, which is probably just me misunderstanding something, and maybe you can just help me sort it out. This is a virus that has killed like almost every human,
Mm-hmm.
except the entire U.S. military somehow.
No, they're not all military. I don't like. Is that? Did you just assume? Like, I don't think they're all military. I think they've been militarized.
Yeah. Okay.
Um.
So that was the second part of my question, is like, is what we're meant to think that some elements of the military survived, and then they kind of absorbed everyone they found, and were like,
Yeah.
hey, you're part of our army now.
I essentially think so. I think the surviving humans have become a militaristic society that absorbed and converted all of the remaining people. Because yeah, I mean, like we don't actually get to see what the 10 years between the start of this outbreak and essentially the end of it are. We are led through what the characters in Dawn talk about and reference, that it was this horrible time of incredible darkness and sadness and violence. And so yeah, I mean, like it's not beyond the pale for me to think that like the surviving humans just became fully militaristic, and that's how they live now.
Yeah. And the group that we sort of left off with in San Francisco, you could say we're already headed that way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's fine. It was more like I'm dumb and need this to be spelled out to me. But I kind of was leaning in the direction of what you just said, that it's like, no, this isn't just the military. It's like these are the societies. They've picked up all the military gear, and this is just who they are now, and which is another indictment of human nature, obviously.
yeah. I mean, I love this idea that I think we saw in both the last movie and this one, that it's like society has collapsed, civilization is gone, but there's all this shit lying around that we can use to kill each other still,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna keep doing it. Like, yeah, this was a weapons depot before it was a like a quarantine area, and well, the weapons are still here, so let's use them. And yeah, I mean, I think absolutely you're right. That's an indictment on our civilization, our society,
Yeah.
and it's perfect for a Planet of the Apes thing. It just fits right in with everything.
Yeah. Oh, so I thought this was a great like so clever of a callback that I was like, how did they know to put this in the movies in the 1960s? How did they know? Well, and what I mean is, when Caesar first discovers the camp, he finds the apes that are basically crucified on the X's that look like the X that Wolverine is crucified on that one X-Men cover. And by the way, parenthetically here, I just love his reaction when he finds these apes and then he looks down at the camp and sees that the cages are full of his entire tribe.
Oh yeah,
And
no,
he's just crushed. Yeah.
Yeah, he realizes his mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. But point being, these are the crucified apes. That's like the warning signs that they put on the Forbidden Zone in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, so they like took that idea and then carried it forward to to keep people out. Yeah, it's perfect. It really is.
I visually, I was just stunned by that choice. I thought that was great.
It was great. What did you think about the introduction of this concept of donkeys in this movie? I thought this was really interesting. And actually, I think the opening of this movie is extremely powerful because we open with humans this time. We're with a group of humans that are slowly advancing on this ape establishment. And the movie does this wonderful thing where it kind of tricks you, where they're sneaking up, and then we see an ape hand reach out towards one of the humans, and we're like, oh shit, here we go. And then it's only after that we realize, no, this is an ape working with the humans or working for the humans, and we have this concept of donkeys. I really find this fascinating because this is something the movie did not have to do at all, but decided to tell the story about how I think Caesar perhaps incorrectly labels these people as just the apes that follow Koba and are afraid that I won't forgive them for their betrayal. And I just think it's more complicated than that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Caesar, you are not understanding these people. They're just terrified apes who don't think they're going to win and are trying to position themselves in the giving themselves the best possible chance to survive. And I think that's a really cool idea. And I really love how it plays out with both the white albino ape Winter, who ends up betraying them, and then the one, I think his red is the one that we interact with most throughout the movie and ends up at the end of it helping Caesar out before he dies. Just really, really love this concept. I think it's a thing that the movie didn't necessarily need to do, but just an added layer of complexity onto this whole story.
Yeah, and of course it's the gorillas who canonically the worst kind of ape. Yeah, I agree. I thought that was really clever and deep, right? Because they explicitly say what you basically said, that the red one, I forget his name. He wants to survive.
His name was Red.
Red, yeah. He's a survivor. He sees himself as a survivor, which makes it all the more poignant when at the end he realizes these people are all going to kill themselves anyway. Mm-hmm. I betrayed my people for nothing, and then he tries to save Caesar, and it doesn't matter. They kill him instantly without hesitation.
Yeah.
Just to say it out loud, it's donkey is it's like a Donkey Kong reference, right?
Yeah.
That's why they call them donkey. Okay.
I mean, they call them Kongs multiple times throughout. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're also they're treating them like pack mules. I think it works on multiple levels, man.
Right.
Yeah, I loved this concept. I thought it was great. I also love the introduction of Steve Zahn's bad ape. I think that was very fun. It also kind of answers a question that I think that the movie maybe needed to explicitly answer, which is we have this group of apes that Caesar liberated from the zoos and wildlife preserves around San Francisco, made them all smarter by throwing the airborne version of the virus into their cages. And I guess we're kind of at that point led to believe these are the only smart apes. And then the movie kind of says, well, the virus that the humans are passing around that is killing them all, like that's the same virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so technically, if this virus gets around apes, it should also make these other apes smarter. And this is how we grow to understand how this is going to become a planet of the apes, right? That like it is not just this small collection of apes that escape from San Francisco. It's like, this is what this virus does. It kills humans and it makes apes smarter. That's what it does. It's going to do it all over the world. Wherever there are apes, if they come in contact with humans that are carrying this virus, they will get smarter.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool. I mean, it's logical, but like I didn't think about that until the movie is like, oh yeah, by the way, this is how it's going to work.
Yeah, yeah. They're consistently thoughtful with their science fiction elements, which I continue to appreciate because they're keeping it simple. They're keeping it nice and simple, and they've made something work really nicely, which the original movies screwed up in such a fantastically hilarious way that we just made fun of it and then just kind of stopped talking about it. But in this series, it's like, no, this is like plausible. This is like not even, this is like believable sci-fi.
Yeah.
That you could have a virus that would do these two things, because what it does is accelerates, neurogenesis, but also it's very aggressive and you need a super strong immune system to survive it. And so it's going to help apes a lot, and then it's going to kill people. It's like, yeah, totally there with you. So
now, whether it would help them learn how to talk, I don't know. I think there's more physical internal attributes in our body that are necessary for the forming of words. But hey, who cares?
Yeah, whatever.
They're monkeys. The monkeys talk. It's great.
Yeah, they could probably talk. They could probably talk if they wanted to.
Yeah, they're just not trying hard enough. Really, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, if birds can talk, then any other animal probably can talk if they tried.
Totally. Yeah, and you already said I love that Maurice talks at the end of this thing. I love that Caesar's youngest son, the one that survives, is named Cornelius. There's another fun little nod towards the previous films. I think this is the thing I like about this movie the most is like, we talked about how even in Rise they had some like dumb winks at you with like, get your damn hands off me, or get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape, like just on the nose kind of winks. I think by the time we've gotten to this movie, the connections back to the original film are just like thematic and also just like moving pieces to get them in place. Like there's no like not no, but like the amount of like specific wink at the audience callbacks are just, yeah, they're just like not, they don't call attention to themselves in that annoying kind of way. It's just like, yeah, his kid's named Cornelius. There you go. Yeah. It's not right. The Cornelius, obviously. It can't be the Cornelius. We've got a few thousand years to go through first, but it's just a Cornelius. That name is going to get passed down amongst these apes the same way the name Caesar is, and that's why people are going to name themselves Caesar and Cornelius, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah, and the name Nova, it's like, well, there's a little girl. What do we name her? Just name her Nova. This isn't that hard. It's a reference, yeah. But it's not a hit you over the head reference. It's just like, what else would it be? The apes have to name her something. She doesn't have a name. They don't know her name.
Yeah, and I happened to notice this thing off of a Chevy Nova, next to me. So yeah, there you go.
Did you enjoy? I very much enjoyed the part when they find Bad Ape, because you instantly know that it's an ape wearing clothes, but it's still you still feel smart.
Yeah, I love that whole sequence. I mean, I love Steve Zahn. I'm a big Steve Zahn fan. I find him just an incredibly effective actor when he's doing comedy or when he's trying to do something else. And so like him being in this movie, I just enjoyed the hell out of. Every scene with him is funny. Great comedic relief in a movie that kind of desperately needs it at times. But also like he's kind of tragic in his own way, right? Like he's been through hell and he's lived all on his own. And yeah, he wears clothes, which is, now we know that the descendants of all the monkeys in Planet of the Apes come from Bad Ape, who wears clothes.
Yeah. What color clothes was he wearing? I don't remember.
I mean, he had like a jacket on, so like he was like the reason he's wearing clothes is because they were far up north and it was cold. So I don't think there was any like specific tie back with the type of clothes he's wearing to the clothes that they wear in the Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah,
So we
you're
did,
right. He has like a blue jacket, and
yeah.
Cornelius and Zira wore green.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're right. Plot hole.
The sad part is someone probably believes that.
Yeah, I do love his jacket. I love he's great. He's like comic relief is hard, right? It's hard to stay within the lines of a super tragic and sad movie like this
Hmm.
and not kind of ruin it. But I think it serves the intended purpose of comic relief, which is like keep the movie from becoming a drag, inject just enough lightness that we're still having fun,
Hmm.
um, and give us something to pay attention to other than Caesar and his horrible torture.
Yeah.
Works really well in that regard.
Also, like, I just want to talk about some like clever things this movie does, just generally. That like Matt Reeves, by the way, good, really good director. One of the things I laughed at is when the apes are traveling, they are all on horseback, and there's only one white horse, and the white horse is the horse that Bad Ape takes when he steals a horse and runs away. And like that from just like a filmmaking perspective is such a clever decision because now as you cut back and forth in this chase as they chase him down, like you just can clearly orient yourself as like the white one on the white horse is the one that's being chased. The one on the other horses are the ones that are chasing. And it's just like these are like small things that you don't necessarily think about, but they definitely did them intentionally. It's stuff I clocked as I was watching the movie.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're right. We haven't talked a ton about Matt Reeves, but like obviously, a huge number of these decisions that we've talked about are tied to him in some way.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm such a big fan of his. You know, we both really enjoyed the Batman film
mhm.
that he made. He also wrote a film or directed a film in 2010 called Let Me In that I quite enjoyed. He's just a really solid director, and I enjoy like how he thinks and how he puts movies together. And I have to be honest with you, I'm a little worried about the next and final film in the series, just because he stepped away from the series now and it's going to be a different director. So I have high hopes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm open minded. We'll see.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to talk about War for the Planet of the Apes? Did you like this one more than the last one? I forgot to ask you that.
Gosh, it's hard. Maybe a little bit. I kind of see these second two, these Matt Reeves ones, as like one story in two parts.
Yeah. No, I think you're right there. Yeah.
So I they neither works without the other. Enjoy it, and like enjoyability wise, maybe I enjoy this one a little bit more, but
Hmm.
I like both of them a lot.
Yeah. I like using them as like two parts of the same movie. I think that works.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm inclined to agree with you on that. So that's good. That's good. Yeah. Really, really great movies. I mean, this is like, once again, I just want to say like it is, as much as I enjoyed the first five films in the series, well, most of the first five films in the series, like these are in my mind on another level. Especially these last two, and they what I love about them so much is that it's not like they took the idea of Planet of the Apes and just said, okay, we're going to just do this completely new thing now, and we're going to do a really good job at it. And you're going to say, wow, these are really good movies, but are they really good Planet of the Apes movies? What I love most about these movies is they are really good movies, but I think they are absolutely 100% true to the spirit of what this franchise is and always has been. Now, are they as kooky as some of the 70s films? No, absolutely not. Are they a little bit more dour? Yes, absolutely. But like, are they true to the theming and what the movies want to do and discuss and explore? 100%. 100%.
I agree. Yep, love him.
All right, so that is War for the Planet of the Apes. Matt, the final film is upon us. Next week, we will reach the end of this series with the 10th film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, a film that I have not seen. This is going to be probably the first one that I haven't seen in this whole thing.
I'm excited.
I am too. I don't. What do you think this movie is going to be? Because I mean, it could kind of like we're at the end of a story, so it will kind of be the jumping off point of a new story, I'd guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw the trailer a while back.
I did too, yeah.
And I know there's like, a king who's maybe sort of a despot that so maybe we have like a young ape has to rise up against the king and, change ape society. But I don't really know. I don't really have a lot of expectations. I don't know if we're like continuing on the track where the destination is Planet of the Apes remake, right? Or
Sure.
if we're just going a totally different direction now.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I have the feeling this is not just going to be like picking up where the last movie left off. I have a feeling this is going to be years and years into the future.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're going to maybe be like halfway towards Planet of the Apes. But yeah, are we going to go a different direction or not? I don't know. We'll see. I'm pretty excited though.
Yeah, me too.
I'm looking at pictures right now. There's an orangutan in here. There's a woman. She's named Nova. Is it the same Nova? I don't think so. It's just another Nova. So we always got to have a Nova.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about this movie. It was directed by, we talked about this before, but I'll say it again. It was directed by Wes Ball, the guy who did the Maze Runner series of films, which are better movies than they had any right to be. So I'm excited. Well, I'm going to look forward to watching this movie this week and to talking with you about it next week. And we will, after the end of that conversation, we will have our final conversation about the Ape series, which I don't know. I've really loved this series we've done, Matt. This has been really fun.
I agree. More than I expected. I really loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks, that is going to be it for us this week. If you have any opinions on War for the Planet of the Apes or on Matt Reeves' trilogy as a whole, please reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia. You can also head to the subreddit r/doofmedia and chat more about this movie there. We want to hear from you. What did you think? Did you like this movie more than the second one? What's the best Apes movie? And if you say it's the next one, if you say it's Kingdom, please let me know why, because that excites the hell out of me. Let me know.
Yeah. If you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on any available podcast platform.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, please consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/Doof Media and join the community and the conversation there. You can help us by, you get a bunch of free bonus content, help us vote for books and for films for the canon. Lots of cool stuff over there for joining. So please check that out.
Yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks. Next week, the conclusion of Deconstructing Apes, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We'll see you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.